He was looking at photons streaming off a sheet of electrically excited plastic. The polymer chains glowed dark and light and dark. It was like seeing a woman's body in a painting across the room, and then, without warning, only the brush strokes that made it up. Naomi was nowhere in it. He shouted, and could sense the pressure waves going out from his throat. The clouds of molecules that made his fingers slapped against the ones that were the control pad. He meant to type that they should fire, that they should kill while the chance was still with them. But he couldn't make out the letters and the splash of photons that spilled off his screen. There was too much detail. Where the air began and the crash couch ended was lost. The boundary between his body and his environment blurred. He had known, since he was too young to remember learning, that atoms were made from more space than material, and that at the lowest levels, the things that made atoms could bounce in and out of being. He'd never seen it before. He'd never been so aware that he was a vapor of energy, a vibration in a guitar string that didn't exist. Something dark and sudden moved through the cloud toward him.
Welcome to the end of it all, and welcome to Examining the Expanse. We open with a horrific house invasion from the now twisted and evil Zan. Well, he looks twisted and evil, but he doesn't really act all that twisted and evil. In any case, this story, this Strange Dogs vignette, didn't build to any satisfying conclusion, but rather intensified in the anticipation for the events in the next 3 novels. Admiral Duarte admires the gothic horrors of this alien vessel orbiting Laconia, and Kara and Zan run deeper into the forest, possible towards their own doom. I mean, I was already going to read the last 3 books, but now I feel like there's a gun to my head and I'm forced to do it immediately to find out what happens in this story. Holden then explains the Rossi's batshit fucking crazy, yet immensely entertaining game plan in this coming conflict, and once again I just love how this narrative always takes the time to sit the audience down and perfectly and simply explain to them the landscape and the geography and the stakes of this coming conflict. It's just so great to know exactly what's going to happen until all that is thrown to the wayside and then everything gets thrown into the churn and then the plan goes awry, and that's not what happens. But just the fact that it takes the time to sit you down and explain all the pieces in play makes the coming conflict all the more entertaining and understandable.
Is this the best you could come up with?
Madam, I know the ring space in that station better than anyone. We'll get it done.
You're such a fucking optimist.
Naomi and Amos then get this beautiful little character moment where they resolve all the conflict they had over this season. They talk about their relationship, how it started and how far they've come and how much they've changed and developed as characters. It was a beautiful little character moment between these 2 family members that's punctuated, unfortunately, by Clarissa's revelation that she's in the twilight of her life and she only has 5 years left. It just shows how far Amos has come as a character and how much he's changed and evolved, but then has this little sad note about his new friend and how she's not going to last all that much longer. I love this slow little character moment here. There's a reason that we're emotionally attached to these characters and that we aren't to other characters in other films. It's because the narrative takes the time to allow us to spend these little moments with these characters and explore their dynamics and explore their relationships. They've been through so much together, yet they all choose to be here in this moment of harrowing horror within each other's company because they're family at this point and we are part of that family in a way.
much salt?
This conflict then builds towards its crescendo as Drummer and the rest of our ships attack the Free Navy, but Marco's cleverness causes mass casualties. It then all intensifies as Walker's kamikaze crusade just builds the suspension to this max level. It's so well executed, it all looks so good, and there's so much immersion and tension and suspense in these beautiful yet brutal space battles. This epic CGI set piece of the Jen Bautista dumping all these cargo containers and hidden pods into the ring gate was so different. We've never seen anything like that in The Expanse before. Even 62 episodes in, it continues to be new and interesting and intelligent. It all looked so great, and the conflict was just so different and interesting, and I didn't see any of it coming. It was incredible. Chaos then erupts as the Rossi is hit and starts to lose power. It starts to wander towards the edge of the ring station. If it hits that, it'll completely evaporate and disappear into nothingness. Clarissa is down trying to fix the reactor, and all the pods are getting obliterated by the railguns. There was so much happening so quickly, and it was so chaotic that it was incredibly hard for me to write down anything in my notes. But there's one thing that I took away from it, and that's it. From the beginning, The Expanse has always been able to have these moments that just build and build in tension and suspense to this incredibly high crescendo of immersion and audience retention. It just has energy, and it just has all this tension and immense crazy moments. So many shows with action and explosions and car chases just don't have you emotionally invested because you don't care about the characters, or you don't care about the events, or none of it makes sense, so you're out. But this show has always just had the perfect arc, building and building and building to these immense, tense crescendos. Then we get the revelation that Clarissa is alive, and that she didn't use her implants, and that she just fixed the reactor with some ratchets and some elbow grease. I thought they were setting her up to die for sure. She had this beautiful redemptive arc where she seemed to tick all the boxes and come the whole way around. Even Naomi in the end accepted her as part of the Rossi crew. And then her 5-year life expectancy. It just seemed like they were building her up as this sacrificial lamb to go out on her sword, but they subverted it, and I was surprised. It is nice to know that, for a little bit of time at least, that she is happy and with people who care about her. So it was oddly satisfying to see her not die.
I didn't use my mods. Just a ratchet strap and some elbow grease. I'm gonna earn my keep. This was the good stuff.
This tracking shot of Amos dropping down to the ring station was so incredible. It's obviously one of the greatest shots in The Expanse's history. It's right up there with that shot of Naomi's helmet as Bobby rescues her at the end of season 5. It may even be better than that. Wes Chatham's performance, the camera tracking around the pod with all these different angles, and the insanity, the pure insanity that the visual effects team added in later. It was brilliant, and it's impossible not to love. I also love this guy bouncing off the railgun housings as he comes in way too hot. Outgunned, pinned down and under fire. The ground assault team gets absolutely wrecked as soon as they land on the ring station. They're just completely fucked. And then Bobby just blazes into the battle only to be knocked down and saved by Amos. All these character moments that they've had between Amos and Bobby leading up to this moment just make it more emotional and intense and immersive and beautiful. After what was most definitely, in my opinion, the best battle in The Expanse's history, and definitely in the running for one of the best battles in all of science fiction television history, our crew come to the realization that they're completely fucked, basically. They're defenseless. The railguns are destroyed and the Free Navy is now bearing down upon them with little to no ammunition, men or missiles. Once again, the Expanse crew goes from hectic situation to even more hectic situation. Worse to worse to worse. That's our crew. At the beginning, everyone fell in love with Marco and his charisma and his hair and his eyes, but everyone at this point now knows that he is completely full of shit. Philip has turned his back on Marco. Admiral Duarte just used Marco. He has no allies left, and it was just a really interesting character arc for him to be this big hero for the belt who was promised them all these grand and amazing things, but really he just short-sightedly threw rocks at Earth, fucked food for everybody, and then had no real ambition to run the economy or the hospitals or the facilities of the belt, and really just wanted to get into a fight. I just want to thank Alexander Keon for his performance as this charismatic, tyrannical, insane dictator. He's obviously one of the best antagonists that The Expanse has had, and he's had more screen time than any of the other antagonists. From what I remember, he was in 3 seasons and he plays a massive part in Naomi's storyline, in Holden's storyline, in every character's storyline. He was just a great villain, and I loved him at the beginning and then I hated him at the end, and it's exactly what everyone in the belt went through with him, and it was exactly how I was supposed to feel towards him. Captivated and then disgusted. A beautiful antagonist.
After all we've done, you still can't see what you've been given.
I do now.
This impassioned speech by Marco was supposed to inspire everyone into this last battle, but at this point in time, Philip is completely disenfranchised. It's actually satisfying to see that Naomi did have a big impact on him and did open his eyes. He was just born into this life, and of course, if your father forces you to walk down this path of violence and despair and racism, then you're gonna do it. But it's very satisfying to see this arc now complete and see that Philip is aware that the path he's walking down is completely despicable and unforgivable. I thought he was going to do something big like physically attack Marco or disable the Pella or have some moment of action or violence, but him walking away from it all and escaping destruction is even more satisfying. He didn't violently lash out at his tyrannical father. He just decided that he can't live this way anymore. He can't assist in these murders. He can't assist in these lies. And he can't assist in the Free Navy's disgusting doctrine of racism and death and destruction. I would never have predicted using the entities within the ring gates to destroy Marco. It came completely from left field for me, and it was a very interesting sci-fi climax. I thought they were just setting up further events to come in the next 3 novels with all this ring gate stuff, and the fact that Naomi came up with this idea and then went about executing it, knowing the devastation it would wrought upon her and all these emotional losses she would suffer due to it, made it even more deep and moving. It was unexpected, it was interesting, perfectly set up, and very satisfying to see. The flow of this sequence, the swelling music, the editing and the energy was the perfect emotional climax. Cutting to Naomi and Philip as a little baby, showing Naomi screaming, which was an improvisation by Dominic Tipper in the moment. Showing Marco getting consumed by these entities within the ring gate, and then Naomi just screaming and struggling in the grasps of Holden. It was just a perfect example of editing. It just flowed so well and it had no dialogue. It was just all communicated with imagery and just everything held on every shot for the perfect moment, and every shot just had the perfect emotional beat just to push us further and further to this emotional climax. It was a brilliant little piece of editing and acting and writing here. Some of the differences between the show and the novel that I wanted to talk about include these spider mechs that attack the Rossi when it engages with the Azure Dragon. The 3 spider mechs jump onto the Rossi and start welding into it, kind of like Sentinels from the Matrix. And Clarissa actually gets shot a couple times while trying to help the Rossi crew. That was really interesting, but obviously would have been far too immense for the budget of this show. Also, the Rossi's battle with the Pella climaxes with the death of Fred Johnson. Obviously, Fred Johnson's death last season had a big emotional beat, and I wouldn't want to take that moment away just to add it in here. I don't know which is better, it happening in season 5 or season 6, but in the book, the attack with the Rossi and the Pella was far more emotionally charged because it did climax in the death of Fred Johnson. Also in the book, when they're attacking the railguns attached to the station, the ring station, Bobby actually lands on the physical little planet thing, the little station thing, and it starts to change colors and shrink and expand. It heats up and overheats her suit, and then it shoots out all these gases and tries to choke her. And this expanding and changing station within the ring, it just it loosens the railguns because of its movements, and it trying to flick Bobby off its back, which is really cool and interesting, which I would have loved to see in this show. But I mean, what happened was brilliant nonetheless, so it's hard to complain. Other than that, it was just, you know, it's a 20-hour novel, and this was a 6-hour television series, so you get a lot more of like the depth and the world building. Because of the war, everything is stretched so thin, and the juice that the crew is shot up with when they enter High G Burns is far dirtier and cheaper, so they get more headaches and don't get the full effect of it. Also, food and fuel and ammunition is all stretched so thin, and it's really interesting to see them struggle through this conflict while struggling for supplies. All those moments were just beautifully and deep in the novel, but I think this is a perfect adaptation of that, and we didn't need 10 episodes. I can't even imagine more stuff in here. It would just slow down this incredibly fast pace, and we still got lots of slow character moments. So yeah, we didn't need 10 episodes. 6 episodes was fine, and the book is brilliant on its own. On the Ty and That Guy little mini podcast thing that they released for this episode, Ty Frank and Stephen Strait talk about Holden as this, in a lot of ways, anti-American hero. He's completely opposite to the Clint Eastwood or Bruce Willis archetypes of the violent, aggressive, masculine American stereotypical hero. He uses sympathy and empathy to unite people and convince people that conflict is wrong and that being together and working as a team is the only option to move forward into a better future. And it was really interesting. I've always viewed Holden as this character is just compelled towards doing the right thing, whether it really is the right thing or not. It is the right thing. Like, he's compelled to use his inner moral compass, whether anyone else agrees with that. But yeah, just getting this explanation of him being an anti-hero because he uses sympathy and empathy rather than violence and testosterone was really interesting. We really get the full conclusion of that here when he turns down the transport minister position very sneakily I might add, to Drummer and to Avasarala's chagrin. But it's the ultimate arc for Holden. He never pursued power or vengeance or violence. He did against the proto-molecule, but he learned from that and he came out of it a better man. He always just wanted a better place for the world to be at and for people to unite and for them to stop fighting and bickering over pointless racism or violence or all that stupid human bullshit.
As president of the Transport Union, I resign. The future of the Belt has to speak with a Belter's voice, and in that spirit, I'm proud to introduce the new president of the Transport Union, Kamina Drummer.
In the end, I was rather surprised that they didn't kill off any major characters. It does all wrap up this inner and outer planets war and conflict with completion and satisfaction, but it is completely left open as well. If this is just a pause point and the Expanse comes back, I'll be ecstatic, of course. But if this is it, if this is all that there ever is, if this 62 run is the only Expanse that we ever get, then it's still brilliant, it's still amazing, and this ending, it's stuck. They stuck the landing. They actually did it. It's up there with The Sopranos and Mad Men and Breaking Bad. It's not just brilliant science fiction, it's brilliant television. And it saddens me to this day that this show isn't bigger because I never understood why it didn't become the global phenomenon that Game of Thrones or The Witcher or any of those shows did. I think the first season is rather slow and it takes a while to get going, but by the time you get to episode 5 of season 2, I think most audience members would be hooked, even if they're not high concept sci-fi fans, and I hope it gains traction and more of a fan base over time. But if it doesn't, and if it just stays as some cult classic that only deep, high concept sci-fi fans are into, then that's fine, because it exists and it's amazing and I'm glad for it. Them revealing that Philip left the Pella before it was completely obliterated, with this voiceover of Naomi talking about how all these little things and these little actions make a big difference, and that trying to do the right thing, even if it's tiny and seems insurmountable, is important. It's very satisfying and beautiful. Then we get that little moment where Holden starts talking about the proto-molecules through the gates, and Naomi urges him to please just be in this moment and take a break. I laughed so hard. And we get the Rossi just zooming into the stars. It was also great. And the main theme and ideas of this season was that if everybody just plays a small little part, if everyone just does a little bit of good, then in the end it can surmount to something bigger. And that speaks truth to our reality. Prax, Naomi, Holden, Philip, Drummer, Avasarala, Walker, Joseph, they all played small little parts in making a better solar system. The Inners and the Belters, they're all in a better place now than they have ever been in the history of Expanse. They seem less determined on war and destruction and realize through this incredible travesty that Marco wrought upon them all that being together and working together as a team is more important. And I like that once again the dynamic of the solar system and all the world building shifts and changes. The Expanse was always so good at taking its world and then completely shifting and changing it, with the ring gates opening up and with Mars falling apart and with Earth getting destroyed. That completely changed the game. And now everything is in a different place once again, with everyone more united. And it was a happy note to end on.
We still don't know what happened to that protomolecule sample. Sooner or later, we're gonna have to do it.
Let's just stay here for a minute.
In conclusion, in a way, I feel like I've been on this epic long journey with the crew of the Rossi. 2 years now, I think. It's not a long time, but I really sunk deep into this fictional universe. Within that time, I've created 39 reviews. I've watched the show multiple times. I've sat down and tried to be as analytical and observational as I can, breaking down the cinematography and the character arcs and the themes and the ideas and the sci-fi concepts. I've listened to the audiobooks, and I have all these great memories tied to experiencing this show and releasing these reviews. And I want to thank everyone who's ever watched one of these videos. I know that they're not high budget, they're not well produced, that I'm a dumb, drunk Aussie and it's hard to understand my accent sometimes. But thank you for everyone who's ever given this little tiny channel any views. It means the world to me. And I want to give a special shout out to Belinda for her love, support, and always encouraging me to keep on going, because without you, I don't know if I would have kept on going with this review. Sometimes it's hard when you put 10 hours into a review and it gets 50 views, but I love doing it. Even if no one watches these, it doesn't matter, because I enjoy doing it. There's a certain catharsis in going through the motions and digging deeper into this show and just being with this show and being with the books and making these reviews and releasing them is meant a lot to me, and it's been a big part of my life over the last 2 years, and now it's all over and it's bittersweet, but we are all better. We are all better for this journey that we've been on. Thank you and good night.